Welcome back, everyone, as we continue our coverage of Hurricane Ivan. About 45 miles ashore of Gulf of Mexico, Mobile, the expected main target, although this is stretching, what, 4 states?
Yes, it is. And as a matter of fact, hurricane-force winds are anticipated in excess of 100 miles from the center of that eye. Tropical force winds about approaching 300 miles. So this is obviously a big storm that's going to affect an awful lot of people tonight, and we have got people stationed all along the coast to give you a sense of what's happening, doing the kids don't try this at home reporting, which is standing out there with a calculated risk. We should tell our viewers, because we're getting a lot of emails with lots of questions about the risks that our reporters endure. Essentially trying to give you a sense of the power of this storm, this Category 4 Ivan, with winds, sustained winds, at its core in excess of 135 miles an hour. Nothing to trifle at.
Now, thankfully, a lot of people evacuated that area, but some people have decided to ride out the storm. And on the phone with us now is Jonathan McConnell, who is in Mobile in his home. Jonathan, are you there?
Yes, ma'am. How are you?
Well, we're doing a lot better than you are. What's the situation where you are now?
For the most part, it's picked up a great deal from a couple hours ago. The tops of the trees are definitely moving a lot more. It's very windy. I'm not exactly sure what the sustained winds are right now, and the rain obviously has picked up a great deal. We can no longer see any grass or anything like that in our front yard, so it's conditions have definitely gotten a little worse.
You're in a home. I understand that you boarded up your family's home as well.
Yes, ma'am. We've had two sets of grandparents, I guess, and then sister's house. We boarded up quite a few homes, actually. So,
are you concerned about a tree falling down on your house, John? Have you gone out and tried to? Well, you probably shouldn't go out to check it out, but did you think about that? And are you concerned about that right now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We've got about 30 pine trees within in our yard, so we're watching those very closely. Actually sleeping in the hall close to our chimney, so that just in case one does fall in the house, we've kind of made our own bets on which one we think will go if one does. And
well, that's pretty good advice to be in a hall and near a chimney and all that.
Who's there with you?
I've got my father who's here with me, and then I've also got a friend from school up at Auburn who decided he was not going to let me try this at home by myself, so he decided he'd drive down and join the festivities, I suppose.
Did you send your grandparents north?
Both my grandparents from one side are up in Auburn, and the other one, my grandmother tried to make it up to Memphis to be with her one of my cousins, and she did not make it. She after sitting in the car for 3 hours and made it nowhere, she turned around and came back home. So.
Do you have power now?
No, ma'am. We've been out for about 3 or 4 hours now.
What, at this point, do you have any regrets staying put?
At this point, I do not. We are 3 miles from my church, which is where the shelter we would go to right now, and we really have not. It's accessible, I guess, through mostly main roads that are going to stay open, unless the emergency crews just decide not to maintain them.
And what about people nearby? Do you know what they have done? Have you talked to neighbors about what their plans were?
Most neighbors, it's really about half and half. Some have left and some have decided to stay. Pretty much everyone is boarded up. Then, of course, some houses you see, and they have done absolutely nothing to it, So.
And you understand the worst is still to come.
Yes, ma'am. We do realize that.
Can you hear the winds at this point?
Absolutely. It's not a problem at all. It kind of reminds you that it's there about every single time you try to.
I wonder where you are. You're nowhere near a window, right?
Not one that's not covered.
Yeah. Okay. So you really can't give us a sense of what that sound is, but everybody always talks about that distinct howling sound.
It is, especially on corners of your house. It's kind of a whistle. Mm-hmm. It's we were actually. About as soon as the power went out, we went and sat on the front porch just to watch it come in, and it was the whole time just constant stir.
Well, Jonathan, you and your family, have you lived there long? Has your family been through a hurricane before? Do you understand what this will take?
Absolutely. We in my grandparents' house, which is actually down really close to the water. Actually, they live on a canal. That one they were at during Frederick. They've been there for almost 40 years, And then this house we've been in at over almost 20 years. And so we're here now. The only largest concern is my sister just bought a house in January, and it's in Midtown right now, so it's by itself.
Well, good luck to you and your family. We'll be thinking about you tonight, and maybe we can check in with you later and see how you fared, and hope your home and everything comes out of this with as little damage as possible.
Well, thank you so much, and you have a great night.
All right, Orelon Sidney's up in the Weather Center. Orelon, I've got some questions for you, and I don't see a stumper here yet. Do you have a couple things you want to share with us first before I start quizzing you?
Let me show you a couple of things, and then we'll go on to the questions. I did want to show you some of the advisories that are out across the southeast. First of all, now here, of course, is Ivan. The center now is 40 miles off the coast of Alabama. That way you know where it is. Here's our tornado watch box. This is in effect until 2 a.m. local time. I believe that's 2 a.m. Eastern time. I'll have to double check that. But the Storm Prediction Center is going to issue a new watch, and that's going to be pushed a little bit further to the north and on toward the east, and you'll see that throughout the day as we go on through tomorrow. Around Birmingham, Gadsden, down to Alexander City, we have high wind warnings in effect. That means winds are going to be high in that area either right now or expected to become high in that area. You're looking at sustained winds of 25 to 40 miles an hour with gusts to 65 miles an hour. A high wind watch is in effect from the southern portion of the Appalachians through the Atlanta metro area down into Macon. They're looking for winds in the Atlanta area, and those warning or watch areas 25 to 30 miles an hour and gusts to 50 miles an hour. So this area is going to see some dangerous winds tomorrow. Take a look a little bit further to the east, and we do have these green areas. These are flash flood advisories that have been, or flood warnings that have been in effect since Francis. Of course, any more rain is going to exacerbate the problems. Not so concerned about South Carolina right now. And southward, you'll see there's some action down in Florida as well along the coast. That area could see some rain tonight that could cause problems stretching across the western coast. So we've got lots of action, not just the landfall, but also the potential for flooding and high winds through much of the southeast. Miles, Captain?
All right, the first one is a softball, hit it out of the park, and then we're going to get to Anderson. Candy in Kansas City asks Orelon this: why does a hurricane gain or lose strength just before hitting landfall? And why is this hurricane season producing so many strong hurricanes?
Okay, I got to answer the last one first. Beats me. I think a lot of people would like to know the answer to that question. There are I've heard a couple of theories. My personal feeling, remember that the past 3 years, we haven't had very many landfalling hurricanes at all. It's been hard to find any that struck the United States coast. This year, we're kind of, I think, making up for lost time. We're seeing a lot more. So I think it's just part of randomness. Over the past 3 years, not many landfalling hurricanes. This year, it looks like the bottom's going to drop out. There are some theories that we're coming into a decade where we will see stronger and more frequent hurricanes, kind of like the decade of the 60s, and so that could be a possibility as well. The first part of the question, again, I think was why do hurricanes gain or lose strength before landfall?
Right.
Well, there's lots of reasons for that. You could run into wind shear, for one thing. If you get, say, a front off the coast or something like that, could start to take some of the storm and shear it out. What we saw with this one is a little bit of dry air got entrained into the storm. We started to see some drier air get pulled in and around. It doesn't seem that it's weakened. It certainly hasn't weakened the wind speed. It's still 135 miles an hour. A storm could also move over cooler or warmer waters, and that would increase it or decrease it. Or maybe, in the case of places like Jamaica, where the storm went just to the south, a whole lot of people were doing a whole lot of praying.
All right, well, whatever it takes. Orelon Sidney, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Anderson Cooper is still with us in Mobile. Anderson, can you hear us? All right, I believe they just lost IFB, which is understandable with the conditions they're fighting there.
We're throwing around this nomenclature. That's interruptible feedback, which is basically your earpiece, which allows them to hear us as well as the producers. And as we see the team scurrying to reconnect them, we will bring it over to David Mattingly. He's over toward Panama City. A couple hundred miles, really, from the center of things, but still getting a battering there, David.
That's right. We're seeing wind gusts now exceeding 50 miles an hour, and they're coming pretty strong and pretty regular now as this storm moves closer. We're actually about 150 miles from Mobile Bay. probably about 100 miles from where the eye of Ivan will eventually make landfall. So we're 100 miles away on the eastern edge, and yet look at what we're having coming down here. This big white sand beach behind me now looks like a big river. We've had a great deal of water coming up to the dunes here on the beach and then moving with the wind down the beach this way. Since the wind has been getting so hard, we've been watching here. We've seen 4 by 8 foot sheets of plywood tumbling like tumbleweeds across the beach, headed down that way at a very rapid speed. We also saw just a few minutes ago a very large pipe rolling in the surf, heading that way also with the wind. So again, dangerous conditions continue to persist out here. This after the day began, this storm began with 2 tornadoes that touched down, killing 2 people. One of those tornadoes touched down just a couple of miles away from here, destroyed a couple of buildings, a couple of businesses, again taking a life in that touchdown. Authorities here are saying there have been 5 confirmed tornadoes spotted in Bay County alone. Again, 2 of those touching down, and each of them claiming lives here in Bay County. But again, right now, all eyes on the beach. This is where this town makes its money, and this is what they're going to be keeping an eye on through the night as Ivan comes in. They're hoping that Ivan will be kind and leave this beach as it was just a few hours ago.
David,
back to you.
To give people an idea of exactly where you are, Panama City, as you said, is one of the favorite places for people to go in the spring and the summer, especially spring break. Panama City, there are so many incredible condos, but also restaurants, nightclubs, as we've seen on television, where all the spring breakers go. Very close to the coastline. They're very close to the beach itself. Are you seeing any damage yet there along that area?
Yes, we are on the beach where all the spring breakers like to party. In fact, just a little ways down the beach there is where MTV has their big party at spring break. This area is in somewhat of a transition. For years, there was a lot of mom and pop motels and hotels around here. Those are all disappearing, being replaced by high-rise condos. And our camera crew, the people who are bringing you the pictures right now, they are actually sheltered somewhat by one of these large condos. They have a big awning out here, very substantial, so they are out of the wind a little bit. That's why the camera is not shaking while I'm standing out here getting pushed around by the winds. But there's not that much of a distance between the buildings and the surf right now. There's a short little patch of dunes covered with sea oats. Those were all put in after Hurricane Opal came through and did a lot of damage to the beach back in 1995. Those dunes are holding steady right now. We have seen some waves go up over onto the dunes. Again, a sign of what may be coming as this storm comes ashore.
David, as we watch that foam just kind of kick off the breakers there, you really get a sense of that wind. But anybody who's hefted a 4x8...
Watch this.
Okay.
Can you see this, Miles? This is what happens occasionally. There will be a big wave that crashes up the beach. See, it looks just like a river, and then the wind will take it and just push it down the beach here. And of course, when you have this kind of water moving, it's taken an awful lot of sand with it. I don't believe that sand's going to reverse direction and come back this way. So this area clearly losing out at this time, at least for the moment, to Hurricane Ivan and this storm surge.
You can almost hear the Chamber of Commerce sighing as they see this happen. But anybody who's lifted a 4x8 piece of plywood can attest to what you talked about at the beginning of this live shot, and the concern that we have for you out there with that kind of stuff being blown in your direction. How much of that stuff is out there?
Well, it is dark out here, so we don't know exactly how much is flying through here. We've seen the big pieces as they roll in. Here comes another wave right now. We've seen the big pieces as it's rolling down across the surf. And you talk about our safety. We are taking precautions here. I am in between 2 small dunes here. And I keep looking behind me, checking the surf, watching my back as I'm talking to you. So we're not foolhardy out here. We actually are taking some very calculated chances. Thank you very much.
That would be on that beach.
I'm sorry?
Well, some of the things that were on the beach, it looks like there's not much of a beach left. There were a lot of huts and things where people, there's jet skis, wave runners, those kind of things. And this is a very popular tourist area. And David, it just doesn't look like there's any beach left.
Well, as far as all of the jet skis and things like that, 2 days ago we saw people coming in with heavy equipment, taking out all of the structures that were out here on the beach, everything that you would associate with the business of tourism that was out here, like all the deck chairs that are rented and things like that. They came out and got all of those, so those would not become projectiles in situations just like this. Now, as I told you before, I was doing live shots out here yesterday, standing about in the same position, and you would be able to look out and see about 300 yards of beach. The waves are cresting and smashing in about where the beach ended. Sorry, it's getting a little bit difficult to talk. Every time I open my mouth, I get a big mouthful of sand coming out over the dunes here. But again, you can see where the waves are breaking. That's where the beach was yesterday. And now all of that water is just coming this way, getting caught by the wind, and being brought down this way. That's why you get that river effect occasionally while we're standing here.
All right, David. Thank you very much. We'll check back with you a little bit later. That's David Mattingly in Panama City and what is left of the beach there in Panama City. Of course,
let's move to Mobile. Mobile Bay, of course, is the focus of the eye right now. The mayor of Mobile, Michael Dow, is on the line. Mr. Mayor, first of all, are you in the command post right now? And if you could just give us a sense of how things are going there right now.
Well, I am in the command post, and we're sort of in a wait-and-see mode. I think we're probably still an hour or so away from finding out what the more full impact of this can be. But and I'm optimistic. I'm more optimistic at this point than I was several hours ago, and I don't really know why.
What gives you that optimism? And could you just give us a sense of what kinds of calls you're receiving right now, and the emergency calls, and your ability to respond to them?
Well, the calls are fairly quiet. Everybody's kind of murmuring amongst themselves, kind of nervously, talking about things, and the calls are not coming in, real frequently. So I really think it's a little calm maybe before the storm, if you want to call it that. I'm this big eye, the huge size of this eye, kind of interests me. Not being a scientist or not really understanding all the ramifications of it, I like the fact that the eye is very large and is kind of drifting a little eastward. And I don't like that for my eastern brothers and sisters, but it just appears to me there may be a little something there we can cross our fingers on. And that's all you can do in these kind of situations is, just hope that things are not as bad as they otherwise could be.
Mayor Dow, what do you know of your situation now as far as power outages, how your facilities are doing where a lot of people
we've lost about, I think, 93,000 persons are out of power in this area right now.
And that's about half the population, right? About 200,000 there?
The MSA is about 500,000.
Total 500,000.
What are you hearing about damage there?
Can't really assess. We've had some people on the streets a little earlier, and they're coming back without a lot of extensive damage report. We're not getting a lot of information in the center right now that's, got trees uprooting and massive damage. So that makes me a little optimistic. And but yet again, we're an hour and a half away from knowing more about the impact. But at this point, I think I'm a little easier than I was personally 2 and 3 and 4 hours ago. And maybe that could change at a very dramatic pace, but I'm hoping it's not.
What has been your experience with hurricanes, Mayor Dow? Were you there for the last one that blew through there, Frederick?
Well, I was in Camille and Frederick, and of course I've been the mayor 16 years, so that's about 100 dog years, and that's a lot of potential hurricanes.
It's a long career. Let me just ask you this. As you're there in the command center, is your family safe and sound? You worried about them? What are your personal concerns?
No, I always pack my family up, and my wife's in Tuscaloosa, my kids, and the extended family's up there, and we just don't mess around with this in my family. If a hurricane's coming, they go.
We've been talking to a lot of people riding it out. A lot of people wear that as a measure of pride in this part of the world, that, made it through Camille, made it through Frederick, I'm going to make it through this one. Is that something you wouldn't advise people to do?
Well, it's not my style. It's not my family's way of handling these. And I encourage people to go. I tell people, look, fill your car with gas. If you have to sleep in your car, buy some potato chips, sleep in your car, have a party, but do it up north.
Well, Mayor, stay with us. Don't go anywhere, because we have Anderson Cooper, who is in Mobile with you, and he has a question he wants to ask you. Anderson, can you hear us?
Yeah, hey, Mayor Dow. We spoke earlier. It's good to hear from you again. I didn't hear the first part of the interview, so if I'm asking a question that's repeating, I'm sorry. I apologize. The wind's here making it a little bit difficult to hear you. I'm wondering, though, if you're getting what kind of reports you have of any structure damage. We had a car going out. We heard about trees down. We heard power lines down. And we had some video of 2 homes that were on fire. I wonder if you'd heard about that, what you know about how your town is doing right now.
Mayor, did you hear Anderson?
No, I could not hear him.
All right. He's just asking you if you've had any reports of damage, severe damage. He's had reports of a couple of homes on fire and some structural damage. He wants to know what you know from the command center there.
Yeah, we had a short period of time where the winds were too high for the fire trucks to get out on the street, and that's what happens to you when the winds get up to around 60 knots. Then the fire trucks can't maneuver. At this point, not extensive damage. We've had some reports, but I've been very optimistic and kind of surprised at the lack of very, very heavy and a lot of damage reports. And so I'm somewhat optimistic about that.
Do you know what the cause of, we're looking at one of the fires in Mobile now. I know it's difficult for these trucks to maneuver in that kind of wind, but do you know the cause of the fires?
No, I don't have the minute details of that. And certainly by the time you call me back, I can give you a more calculated report on that if that's an interest to you.
Well, it's a dangerous situation with power lines down and things like that.
Sure.
Mayor, could you just do me a quick favor? Just kind of paint the picture that you see before you right now. Who's in the room? What are they all doing right now?
Well, again, we're anticipating this thing is an hour to maybe an hour and a half off from its max. And people are, they're tired. They've been here a long, long time. And they're talking amongst themselves, kind of nervously talking and drinking lots of coffee. I see some big yawns and, just anxious people.
Wanting it to be over, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Willing to do what they've got to do. I mean, they're ready to go.
Well, Mayor Dow, we hope to check with you in a couple of hours and see how things are going there in the town of Mobile. As Ivan creeps ashore.
Best to you and your city, sir. We wish you well.
I'll get you a detailed report next time you call. We'll fill you up.
All right.
All right, thank you,
sir.
Gary Tuckman is now standing by in Alabama, another state affected by this storm. He's in Gulf Shores, one of the most beautiful places in the world, Gulf Shores, Alabama. Certainly not beautiful now, Gary.
Gulf Shores, Catherine, is not beautiful now. You're absolutely right. This city that is in the very southern portion of the state of Alabama, right along the Gulf of Mexico, a beautiful beach resort, is getting flooded by these rains and these winds. We've now had the torrential rains for about 9 hours straight, and it's taking its toll. We're standing in a parking lot of a hotel just across the Intracoastal Waterway, the barrier island of Gulf Shores Beach. This parking lot is now like the Colorado Rapids. It's a river that is just flowing in the direction of the wind. Behind me there is a tree that fell about an hour ago behind us. Other trees are bending and we hear cracking from these winds. We've had hurricane force gusts, but it's still not anything like we expect it to be a few hours from now. When the eye comes across, it is expected that this will take the brunt of the storm, the eastern part of the eye wall, and that's why we're using this video phone. It allows us to pack up very quickly and get away from potentially hazardous areas, as opposed to the satellite truck that we usually use, which is a little more stationary. You have to be a little more careful where you set it up. We've been told by emergency operations officials here in Baldwin County that the fire station in Gulf Shores, which is just behind us, has lost its roof. It's on the barrier island, has had its doors blown in, and is now flooding. There is a big problem with flooding in the beach area. We are told that 1 foot of sand is now in the streets in the beach area. We're also told that lots of big trees are blocking the major arteries, particularly Alabama Route 59, which runs along the beach here, and almost all of the 140,000 people who live here in Baldwin County, just across the Mobile Bay from Mobile, Alabama, are without power. That's not a surprise, but what might be a surprise is what could happen in the hours to come when the forces of these winds double, because right now the gusts are about 70 miles per hour, and we're expecting it to reach 135 miles per hour.
Gary,
back to you.
You admitted last time that you're standing right beside a fallen tree on the assumption that there won't be another fallen tree there. Have you had much in the way of debris, any indication just looking around you at the structures of visible signs of damage?
No. As a matter of fact, the hotels we're standing near have not lost any portions of their roofs. However, when we were on the beach before, right across the Intracoastal Waterway, where there is absolutely nobody anymore, and I've told you this before, Miles, it was really amazing. Never seen compliance like this. We couldn't find one civilian on the barrier island of Gulf Shores Beach, and it was a good thing because the debris was starting to come off the building, and there's a lot of new construction there, beautiful new construction, but there are also old homes on stilts, and they were starting to lose their roofs before we even got to talk to the shore enforcement. Here, we see tree debris that's floating down these rapids that you can't see because it's so dark. But as far as debris from the building, that hasn't occurred yet. However, we fully expect it to occur.
All right, what about flooding quickly, Gary? Any sign of that there?
Big problem with flooding. I can tell you right now, in this parking lot, we see the flooding. On the beach, 4 hours ago, it was up to our knees. There are big problems with the flooding in the beach area. We're just across the Intracoastal Waterway, as we've said, from the beach area. The street, which we're standing near, Route 59, is flooded. It's going to be a big problem during this storm because there has been no let-up at all. There's been a let-up in the winds over the last 9 hours, but the rains have not stopped since about 5 o'clock Eastern time this afternoon, and it has just continued.
Gary Tuckman in Gulf Shores, Alabama, and we'll be back with you in just a little bit. We're going to take a break now. When we come back, I'm going to read some of your email. We have quite a few, hundreds.
Hundreds, and we appreciate them. So keep them coming, and we'll share them with you and pose a few questions to our folks out in the field and up in the Weather Center after a break. Stay with us.
Welcome back, everyone, as we continue our live coverage of Hurricane Ivan. He's not ignoring me. He's actually reading your email.
I'm ensconced in your emails.
We're going to read a few in just a moment. We want to tell you, though, that the winds have picked up so incredibly in Mobile, where our Rob Marciano and Anderson Cooper are, that they're actually going to move locations, and we will check with them in just a few moments once they get set up again.
They're going to find a hardier potted plant to hide behind. I think that was probably... They realized it was probably not the best place to be.
Especially since one of the potted plants that they were hanging on to flipped over the side, so it's not a good sign.
Fortunately, it was to wind of them. All right, let's bring Orelon Sidney in. Orelon, it is now time for you to impress us with your knowledge. Peter Korst, and I'm not kidding, you do impress us with your knowledge. That is no joke.
Much. And you explained it where we all can understand.
Yes,
well,
which is another thing. It can be difficult for the likes of us here. So let's first of all get to Peter Korst, who's in is it Beloit or Beloit? Beloit, Wisconsin. Explain this eye wall deterioration. Could this larger eye wall reform as a larger eye wall and possibly stall the eye wall and gain strength?
Ooh, Peter's been thinking.
Yeah, he's been thinking a lot about this. But basically, well, you know the question. You go ahead.
Oh, me now?
Yeah.
I can answer this one real easily.
I knew you could.
No.
No. Okay.
I mean, I'm not trying to be facetious.
Well,
no.
You know, it's really true.
It's okay.
What meteorologists have discovered over the past few years is what's called an eye wall replacement cycle. And what you're basically looking at in very strong hurricanes, you generally have two eye walls. You have an outer eye wall, something like that one, and then you have an inner eye wall, which is smaller. Now, the inner eye wall gets choked off basically from all the juice that keeps it going. It collapses and the outer eye wall takes over. Then the outer eye wall starts to shrink, and we talked about that before. When it starts to shrink, the wind speed goes up. And a strong hurricane can go through that eye wall replacement cycle many, many times before it makes landfall. And generally what you will find is that the storm will be stronger after it's gone through a cycle. This one did it several times, especially when it was in the Caribbean, around Jamaica. You kept seeing the winds, they drop back to 150, and then the next advisory they'd hop up to 165, and then they drop back again to maybe 145, and then back up to 150. Those were eye wall replacement cycles that it was going through. It may be going through something like this now, but I don't know, because it started to get that dry air pulled into it, and I think that's more of a feature of it coming on close to land, picking up the drier air, and then making the landfall. I don't think it's necessarily going through a cycle at this point, but I'm certainly not an expert in eye wall replacement cycles. There's probably only a few in the whole world that really are super knowledgeable about that stuff. But the short answer to the question is probably not.
All right. Susan in Huntsville has this one for you. Please report the effect of winds at various speeds. If winds are 40 miles an hour, what may be expected? At 60 miles an hour, at 75 miles an hour, and so forth. At what speed will shingles be blown off roofs? Will trees likely be blown over? What height trees at what speeds? All right, Susan's getting a little too detailed there, but basically give us, if you could, some rules of thumb so we have an idea of what kind of a wind speed we're seeing. In other words, basically what she really wants to ask is, what speed would it take to knock Anderson off the roof there, right? That's really what she's after.
I guess we found that out, because Anderson's off the roof now.
Right, yes, exactly. So we know what that is, right?
That's right. As a matter of fact, Mobile is gusting, the last I saw was 78 miles an hour. Right off the top of my head, I can't come up with too many things, but I can tell you this. If you look at, on the internet, at the Beaufort scale, hold on just a second, I'm getting the Safer-Simpson scale. This is the Fujita tornado scale, I'm afraid, so that's not going to help me much. But if you look on the internet for the Beaufort scale, B-E-A-U-F-O-R-T, it takes winds from 0 at calm and tells you, going all the way through to hurricane force, what those different things would do. That's how they used to determine what the winds were, whether or not a flag would be fully extended, whether it was difficult to walk without assistance, things like that, and that goes up to the gale force. Then, of course, once you're at gale force, you get into the Safer-Simpson scale, and that's a whole different ballgame. A Category 1 storm, for instance, not going to cause a whole lot of wind damage. You're not going to see a big storm surge. You may find some small limbs down. Some small trees might go down. As you go up through Category 2 and 3, once you get to Category 3, you start to get some structural damage possible, and that's what a major hurricane is, Category 3, 4, and 5. As you get up into the 4s and 5s, you can get catastrophic damage. That's something like Hurricane Andrew. Here we are. I've got the Safer-Simpson scale here. Thanks, Sean. That's something like Hurricane Andrew. You get destruction like a tornado over a huge area. But generally, as far as winds are concerned, I can tell you from my experience in Orlando with Francis, I was very surprised that I was able to stand up in winds that were gusting in 40 and 50 mile an hour range. That was quite surprising to me. But once you get up into the 60s and 70s, as we saw with Anderson and with Rob, it becomes very difficult to stand. Almost impossible to stand, to feel the sting of the rain on your face is very, very uncomfortable. And then, of course, as you go beyond that, you certainly don't want to be outside.
Orlin, we're going to show you right now some of the damage that wind is causing in Mobile. In fact, when Rob and Anderson were moving, this is some of the video that was shot just a few moments ago of some of the damage that's taking place in Mobile. And granted, it's very difficult to see because there's just not any power there in Mobile. There's trees down, there is debris on the road, and of course, Ivan is not even ashore yet.
Well, and it's obviously this is literally a very narrow path which they're following as they make way toward higher and safer ground. But you do have the sense, first of all, I see a little bit of power on there, which is, or is that just the reflection?
That's the reflection of the light.
It's clearly the reflection, yeah. So it's pitch dark. I think the mayor was saying 93,000 customers were without power at this moment in an metro area of about 500,000. And there you really get a sense of that wind as it goes across that road there as they make their way to higher ground.
Orlin, we spoke with Mayor Dowell just a few moments ago, and he said he was more optimistic now than he was a couple of hours ago by looking at the eye of the storm. And looking at it, I don't see much to be optimistic about.
Well, I think at that point he may have been looking at a radar, an image that was showing that the southwest side of the eye actually collapsed there for, I guess, about an hour and a half. it looked like that collapsed. But then it looked like it has filled back in. So I think he may have been optimistic at seeing that eye wall collapse. And that's an interesting feature to me as well. I'm going to have to do some research about that. But that did fill in. And so we definitely expect this storm to be 135 miles an hour going in, if not even maybe a little bit stronger. But I did find some information for you thanks to Jason and Sean. My producers helped me out this evening. Shingles will go off of a roof. If your roof is like mine, it'll go off at probably 5 miles an hour. But shingles will go off at 47 to 54 miles an hour. Trees go down at 55 to 63 miles an hour. And, of course, trees down means power lines down, and that means you're going to find lots of power outages, and that's what we expect across not just the Gulf Coast, but across all of the southeastern United States, stretching up to Atlanta, potentially up into even parts of the Blue Ridge and the Smoky Mountains. Once tree limbs start going down and trees start going down, the power starts going out, and that is going to be a big problem. Yeah. Also remember that the ground is already saturated, and a lot of the trees in this area of the country are pine trees, and they have very shallow root systems. In fact, my father cut down all of the pine trees on his property because he was afraid of the trees falling over onto the house. With the wet ground and very shallow roots, you have a lot of problems with downed trees. So I think we're going to see some extensive power line damage over the next several days.
It's amazing to me how in this day and age, with all the technology we have so many power lines just sitting on top of poles, and we haven't buried more of them, isn't it? You know, it's incredible, isn't it, Orlin?
Well, you know, in my neighborhood, when I was going through high school, I guess about 20 years ago, all of our power lines were underground.
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of the newer neighborhoods have done that.
Yeah, I'm surprised.
It's an expensive proposition, isn't it?
I guess it would be, especially to go back and redo it.
Yeah,
you know,
precisely.
But when it goes down in a hurricane, maybe the best thing to do then is to put them
Instead
under
of
the
putting
ground.
it back up on the sticks, put it underground. Yeah, precisely.
Some of the terrain, though, may prevent that. All right, on the phone with us now, we have Paulette Williams. She is with the Mobile County Emergency Management Agency. She's a spokesperson there. Paulette, can you hear us?
I sure can, thank you.
We are seeing some video that our Anderson Cooper and Rob Marciano shot just a few moments ago. Looks like lots of power lines down, lots of limbs in the road, trees down. What are you hearing?
That's exactly right. We, in fact, currently we have approximately 135,000 customers in Mobile County alone without electricity. That represents about 63% of the customers in the Mobile County area without electricity.
What are you hearing about injuries?
So far, we haven't had any reports of any injuries that have come in here. Most of all of our emergency vehicles have been pulled from the streets because of the wind. We are just currently beginning to see the eye wall of the storm move in just to the east of Mobile Bay, where we'll be experiencing 100-mile-an-hour plus winds over the next hour or so.
So, Ms. Williams, this is Miles O'Brien. What happens if you get a call now and somebody needs some assistance? You can't really respond, can you?
That's exactly right. It's very difficult to get emergency response vehicles out into the streets.
I can't imagine how frustrating that would be for people such as yourself who, you know, spend their career responding and helping people. What's the advice to folks who get themselves in a tight situation, in a situation like this?
Well, certainly the best thing they can do is hopefully take care of themselves and try to do what they can on their own for the next hour or so, at least until we can get back out. And then certainly it's going to be a challenge for us with all of the debris that we anticipate from this severe storm that is moving in.
What kind of calls, if any, are you receiving now there at the center?
We've just had a few calls in where trees that have blown down on houses and that type of stuff, but even some of those were early on, and most of the people are, able to stay in the houses without exiting or going outside.
63% without power. What about the areas like hospitals and places like that?
Most of those areas, including some of our shelters, are on emergency power at this time.
It's a good thing they have that. What's your biggest concern right now, Paulette?
Just the aftermath of the storm itself, and really the unknown of what to expect. I happen to be one of those, I guess, unfortunate ones that experienced Hurricane Frederick 25 years ago, so I kind of have a sense of what to look for in the morning hours. There's going to be a tremendous amount of debris, I'm sure, and it's just hard to tell with new construction and building codes the difference in the damage to homes and residential and businesses in the past 25 years, just to see the outcome of that building.
As you just said, it's been quite some time since a storm like that has moved through Mobile. Do you think that your agency and the city of Mobile is prepared for the aftermath of this storm?
I think we're as prepared as anyone. We have a pretty smooth oiled machine here. We have all the agencies represented here in the EOC and are quite conscientious in doing their job, and I think we'll fare through this all right, and certainly we're already in a mode to receive the support of the state of Alabama Emergency Management as well as the Federal Emergency Management Agency.
Well, good luck to you, Paulette Williams of the Mobile County Emergency Management Agency, as Ivan is now moving ashore, and the next couple of hours will be very telling for your town. Thank you very much, Ms. Williams. We'll
Thank you. Thank you.
All up and down the coast, the shelters are full, the hotels are full. Any place where there's a measure of high ground, whether it is the ground itself is higher above sea level, or if they're just the higher portions of hotels, as we've seen in New Orleans, these so-called vertical evacuations. Nevertheless, people are gathering together, riding out this storm in the relative safety of these shelters. Chris Lawrence is at one of them in Pensacola. When last we checked with him, they were having some problems with power outages there. There was some concern about getting people a little safe.
Yeah, Miles, we have actually had to move away from that shelter. We are probably now about 6 to 7 miles further north off that body of water. Where we were at the shelter was at the Pensacola Civic Center. That Civic Center was one of the largest buildings in the city. It's a very structurally sound. It's a huge building. Some 1,500 people being housed there right now. But that building is also just about a quarter of a mile from the ocean, and the winds were just getting way too severe to even stay there. As we drove from there to here, about 6, 7 miles away to another hotel where a lot of people are holed up here, even a couple hours ago, we could see huge trees just downed across the road. At one point, to get by, we had to almost drive across someone's front yard just because we were trapped at that point, and the police were saying that it was not safe to be out on the street. So to make our way through, we had to kind of get around that tree. But I can only imagine what those people are hearing right now, being so close to the ocean, literally just about a little bit more than a quarter of a mile away. Even here where we are, 6, 7 miles, I can barely keep my head up because the rain is coming in so hard. It's coming in just about horizontally now, and the winds are just ferocious as they gust up. Miles?
Well, let's just be clear about this for folks. The folks inside that shelter are okay. It was your decision because you were outside and reporting from outside that it wasn't safe to be outside the Civic Center, correct?
Yeah, I want to be clear about that. The shelter is huge. Picture the Civic Center is like, picture a very small stadium. There was a huge center area, several levels. The hurricane will not do major damage to that structure. It would be like a hurricane hitting one of the smaller stadiums in a bigger city, so to speak. The only danger there is some danger of flooding. What they did, we have heard, is the Red Cross has moved everybody up to the upper levels. Although there is a lot of room on that first floor, they were concerned about some flooding. So they now move people up to, say, the second, third, even fourth levels, and they're considerably a ways off the ground. So flooding should not be much of a problem there in terms of making their stay any tougher than it already is going to be. There were also some concern that if they stay near the windows, that this wind, which is incredibly strong right now, even where we are, might shatter some of those windows. So they had begun the process of moving everybody more towards the center and clustering them in smaller rooms, not having everyone together, but having people clustered in smaller rooms on a high floor near the middle or the inside of that civic center. Even though it is very, very close to the water, the sheer size of the building and the strength of the building and the fact that they're near the middle of that huge building should keep them relatively safe.
Chris, that is a very scary situation for those involved. Miles and I just talking about how frightening it must be for the small children that are there being moved like that. How many people are there in the center?
There were 1,500 people in that center, families from around the Pensacola area. That's about as many as they can handle. They were cooking, well, not cooking, I should say, but they were preparing sandwiches. They had some milk. They had some water. They wanted to give these people something to eat because, as you said, you've got a lot of kids in there. We saw a baby as young as 5 months old. Many of the parents had their kids in there. Now, some families did think ahead, and they brought their own supplies. And this is by no means a full-blown shelter. When we think of the word shelter, we sometimes think of established buildings dedicated to people who are homeless, with beds and cots and things like that. This is not what we're talking about here. Your bed is whatever blankets you could bring with you. Your meal was perhaps a little bit of peanut butter smeared on a piece of bread, or whatever you were able to scrounge together to bring with you. So by no means was this what we normally would think of as a shelter.
Right. And a lot of these people have gone to that area, to that building, because it is expensive to move out of your home and move north and stay in a hotel for
if you can find a hotel room,
right,
at that. So it's a difficult thing.
Well, yeah, and let's be honest. Somewhat, at least one of the families we talked to was very honest and said it was economic. This storm is an incredible storm, but as one woman told me, when it's over, she said, I still have bills to pay. Our lives will go on. We still have to take care of things, and if our home is damaged, we're going to have to spend some money to get that fixed. We can't afford to drive around and stay at a hotel and buy food for, and eat out for over a week and then come home and have to spend more money. So she felt that their safest place to go at this point would have been the shelter. So that's why they went there, a combination of safety and, quite frankly, economics.
All right, Chris Lawrence reporting for us on the situation in Pensacola. We'll check back with you later tonight. Thank you very much. When we come back, we're going to check in with CNN Susan Candiotti, who is in Biloxi, and find out how they are faring there. Hopefully a lot better than those in Pensacola.
CNN's coverage of Hurricane Ivan continues. Stay with us.
Hurricane Ivan apparently hitting land now. Let's check in with Orelon Sidney and find out what the situation is.
That's right. We're looking now at the barrier islands. Here is Gulf Shores. Here are some of the barrier islands just off the coast, and there's the center of the storm. And the distance between the northern eye wall and Gulf Shores is about 21 miles. But if you take just the eye, just not the eye itself, but just the northern edge of that eye wall there, you're only about 18, 19 miles from it making landfall. So right now, the northern eye wall, the heaviest rain, the heaviest squalls moving across the barrier island at Gulf Shores currently. I'm going to see if maybe, I don't know if Jim can hear me, but I'd like to take some wind speeds from these if it's possible. We're looking, of course, southward at the eye. The winds are calm, but look up here to the north. Sustained at Pensacola in the 30s. Now, I did see a wind gust at Pensacola of 96 miles an hour. You can see, of course, as you head down towards the south and west, you get those wind speeds a little bit lower, but generally they're in the 40s, and this is sustained. These are not gusts. Biloxi reported a gust just a few moments ago of 65 miles an hour. Mobile, excuse me, Mobile gusted to 78 miles an hour. Again, Pensacola at 96, and Elgin, or I think it's Eglin Air Force Base, 76-mile-an-hour wind gusts. So very strong winds continuing to work their way on the coast here as we're watching the center of this storm approaching the coast. It looks like Gulf Shores is going to be the location of landfall. We'll have to wait, obviously, for the National Hurricane Center to tell us the official landfall point. But the storm is making landfall as we speak. Catherine, Miles?
Orlin, does this bode well for Mobile Bay? Because what it seems to indicate is that eastern component of the storm has continued to kick in, and it's sending it a little bit farther that way, which means, of course, you get the left side of the storm in the bay.
Well, I'll tell you, it's better that it's going to the left than the right, but in this particular case, the storm surge is going to be the worst after the center moves on the coast, because the winds coming around from the south are going to be what pushes the water up into Mobile Bay. So yes, it's obviously better if the center of the storm goes a little bit east, but look at how close that is. I mean, that's just barely east of due north. So the center of that storm is probably going to cross over Mobile Bay at some point, perhaps not the dead center, but they are going to get the center of it. You can see now that distance there. I can't quite read it. It looks like about 61 miles there between the center of the storm and Mobile itself. But this center is going to come so close until it's almost a wash, literally. I mean, it's almost a wash as far as that's concerned, Miles. They're going to get some very heavy squalls. There are probably some squalls in here with rainfall amounts as much as 2 inches, even 2 to 3 inches an hour. Some very heavy rain amounts coming in and some very gusty winds at this point. Miles?
You said repeatedly to me when we were doing live coverage on Francis that the back wall is what we need to be worrying about. Is that the case in this one as well?
Well, in any hurricane, people often make the mistake of seeing the first part come through and thinking, things are so much better now. Here comes the eye, it's all quiet. But they forget that you've got winds, too, coming from the south. Now, what I've seen with this particular storm, this image isn't going to show it quite as well, but if you could take the storm and kind of cut it in half, it looks like most of the action is still on the northern side. A lot of that has to do with the fact that it's moving on inland, and you get some what we call convergence, some friction with the ground helps to build up some of these stronger thunderstorms. But you can see down to the south here, we don't have quite as much action as far as the reds and the oranges in the radar picture. So generally these storms are a little bit less strong than these, but as we move this whole thing up, you're going to start to see stronger thunderstorms across parts of the area. Look at this. You can even see some very heavy rains up towards Alabaster, up towards Birmingham, continuing southward down to Montgomery and Troy. Now do remember that we still have the potential for tornadoes. I'm expecting a new watch to come out from the Storm Prediction Center shortly, but look at this line of thunderstorms extending from Troy down through Dothan across the state line into Florida. These look to be some very dangerous thunderstorms. Wouldn't be surprised if we start to see at least some rotation with some of these thunderstorms and perhaps getting tornado warnings with those as well. And then, of course, continuing back toward the center here, again, Pensacola and Mobile, still a chance for tornadoes, but it looks like these outer rain bands, believe it or not, are a little bit more potent at this point. You can even see some of these here moving to the northeast, south of Montgomery. You've got to worry about some thunderstorms there. Tornado watch expires at 2 a.m. We'll see a new one issued when this one expires.
Hey, Orlin, quick, while you have that up, a quick question for Pamela in Bremerton, Washington.
Mm-hmm.
We should, sometimes we take things for granted here and we assume things. It's a good question, though. What are the different colors that we see around the eye? Mostly green, then there's blue, and then there's yellow, orange, and red. If you could just remind folks what all that means and so they could understand a little bit about that, that would be good.
Okay, well, in this particular case, we're looking at what's called an infrared satellite picture, or we're looking at radar. And what that means is you're seeing the reflection of the precipitation as it comes back to the radar antenna. And what you're seeing in these brighter colors are the higher cloud tops. And the higher your cloud top, generally the stronger your thunderstorm. So your cooler colors, your blues and your greens are showing lower cloud tops, generally less severe thunderstorms. As you go to the north, there's that northeastern quadrant. Once again, right there, that's where you find the very strongest thunderstorms, the highest cloud tops, the most severe weather, the best chance for tornadoes, and generally that's where you find the heaviest rain as well.
You know, we should say, Orlin, that we've already seen that the outer bands, how potent they are. We had a tornado kicking off on the side of there that has already killed 2 people in Panama City.
Yes, that's right. And remember that we did have tornado warnings, too, over the city of Dothan. I have not seen any damage from that I know of. But I expect to see numerous tornado warnings continue as we go through the rest of the day.
Wow. Look at this wind. This is where Anderson Cooper and Rob Marciano were standing about 30 minutes ago. They are now moving to another location. But Miles, look at the wind kicking up the...
Well,
that planter is not going to stay there long, is it?
We still have some people there, but where they are is sheltered, we should point out. And that, obviously out there in that patio, which is 4 stories above the ground, which itself is 12 feet above sea level, that is a little taste of really what is to come. And probably really an indication on the mild side, because it's still 60 miles away, the eye of Hurricane Ivan, Category 4 storm. We're watching it all the way. Continuing coverage here on CNN. Stay with us.
Okay, I'm back. As we continue our live coverage of Hurricane Ivan, it is 2 a.m. Eastern Time. The eye of Ivan now reaching shore in Gulf Shores, Alabama. Let's check in, though, with Susan Candiotti, who is standing by in Biloxi. Susan, looks like the winds have kicked up there.
Hi, Catherine. We are, it certainly has since the last time we saw you. We are feeling a stronger driving sheets of rain as the evening is wearing on. And of course, that's the best way to illustrate it, along with me. They're the kind of wind gusts that tend to sometimes pick you up and put you on your toes every now and again. And over here just a bit, we'll show you Interstate 10. Of course, there is not a soul on that highway now. Everyone was ordered to evacuate to points north of here if you were living along the Gulf Coast. And then this is a safer location to be, and that's why a lot of local people are staying at hotels like this one. You can see it is providing them a very strong place, sturdy construction here to protect themselves from the storm. We still have power here. You are starting to hear the wind whistling through the doors here. A bit disconcerting to say the least, but so far everyone here is making out okay. We also have a lumber yard over here, but well, we are lucky. We are waiting to see what might happen over in that direction to see whether that roof is going to hold up. So far, so good. We do hear from Mississippi Power that about 40,000 people now in the southeastern part of Mississippi have lost power. Most of the people who have lost power are in Jackson County, which of course is the closest to the Alabama line. Here about 6,000 people or so in the Biloxi Gulfport area. We've got about 17 shelters open here with 3,400 people. The Civil Defense Agency is now reporting that they are seeing more downed power lines. They are seeing debris in the street, and roads are slowly becoming more and more impassable in parts. They are warning people, do not go out, and when you are seeing roads that are underwater, it's the same warning we hear all the time. Do not attempt to go through that water because you don't know if there might be a downed power line in there. It's just hard to tell. Now, they are expecting more and more flooding in low-lying areas, in particular because they also have the Back Bay to deal with in Biloxi. But other than that, they have reported no injuries so far. Certainly, thank goodness, no deaths so far. They have reported some house fires, roofs blowing off, some local businesses, as well as a hospital here. Other than that, everyone's hanging in to see what we have left to live through this night, because of course, as we just heard, it is just starting to make landfall in Gulf Shores. Here we have reports, I think Orlin mentioned it, down at the Civil Defense Agency, a wind gust as high as 66 miles per hour compared to half of that where we are, which is about 5 miles away. Catherine and Miles?
It's just Catherine. We're going to give Miles a break. He has to be back on the air again in the morning. Susan, what are you hearing from people there that I'm sure feel like they can breathe a bit of a sigh of relief that the storm has moved to the right of them?
That's true, because we are on the western side of the storm at this point, which is certainly the weaker one. That is of great comfort to disaster planners here who were hoping for that but never quite sure about it because of the way Ivan and any hurricane can wobble ever so slightly in one direction or the other, but certainly they're much relieved that that's the case. Of course, they still say that they are expecting at least 10 inches of rain here. The storm surge, as I indicated, is still going to cause some flooding to this area, but it's the kind of intensity that they were quite frankly hoping for. For example, when it comes to all the people that are losing their power, the Mississippi Power was telling me they're going to still have to wait until the morning to make their damage assessments and then go out. And as a matter of fact, because they have had to lend workers, lend personnel to Florida, for example, they don't have quite as many people as they normally would have to get power back on, get power restored, but they do say they hope it won't take them that long to get things back to normal here. Catherine?
All right, Susan, good luck to you. We're going to check back with you a little bit later as Ivan moves inland, already now reaching Gulf Shores, Alabama. Let's check in with Rob Marciano, who's in Mobile and has been seeing quite a bit of increase in the winds there, haven't you, Rob?
Absolutely, so much so that we're not bothering to go out past the point of protection anymore. It's just way too dangerous, and debris is beginning to fly down in the street. Awnings are have been torn down, light bulbs and lampposts being torn down as well. So it is getting very dangerous across the Mobile areas. Right now, winds have turned to the northeast. It tells us a couple of things, and I suppose it's confirmed on the satellite picture that this center of the storm seems to be now going to pass us to the just barely to the east, or at least at worst will be on the western part of the eye wall. That would be a good sign for sure. But I was thinking the winds are definitely still at hurricane strength here out of the northeast, with gusts certainly getting close to 80 miles an hour in spots. I want to bring in Orelon Sidney, if I could. Orelon, maybe you can confirm some of the things I'm saying. I just tapped into the programming, and I hear he's going on shore in Gulf Shores. So if that's the case, even if it goes due north from there, we here in Mobile are going to be on the western side of the eye wall. Not a necessarily pleasant place to be, but as far as the worst of the storm, it looks like it's going to be on the eastern side of the bay, correct?
Yeah, there are worse places you could be, not by much, but there certainly are worse places you could be. Matter of fact, I'll show you if you take a look here. Mobile, of course, situated here. We're going to take this now and go into 2 dimensions and flatten this out for you and show you what is going on here. Here is Mobile Bay, and you can see that the center of the storm is just about to make its way onto the coast around Gulf Shores. If you bisect the eye, it looks like the eye is going to go right, almost not right down the center, but it looks like Mobile Bay is going to kind of cut the eye in half by just a little bit. So, Rob, what you're going to find, if you're at the top tip of the bay here, is that you're going to get that northern eye wall moving through probably in about the next 30 to 45 minutes, and then you're going to maybe even get into a little bit of the calm. It's probably not going to last very long, probably only about 15, 20 minutes, because that western eye wall is very, very close to you, but I wouldn't be surprised if your winds do calm down a bit. The eye has become very ragged, and it's actually expanded out to the southwest. So as the eye moves to the north of you, you might actually manage to get in a little bit of the calm, and I bet you'd appreciate that right about now.
Well, we'll take a bit of a calm right now, that's for sure. You can hear transformers blowing out on the other side of down on the street. One other question I have for you, Orelon. This is going to bode well for Mobile as far as a storm surge. I'm thinking if it's going on shore at Gulf Shores, we'll get this northeast wind will turn northerly as the eye wall passes, and we won't get nearly the surge of 12 to 18 feet that was feared.
I don't think the surge is going to be as strong, but as we heard earlier from Max Mayfield from the National Hurricane Center, the problem is going to come in not when this storm makes landfall, but when the back edge actually comes in and the winds switch around to the south. You're still going to get some southerly winds, but I think they're going to come at you at a little bit of an angle. So I don't think you're going to get that direct punch from the winds straight from the south pushing water directly northward into the bay. That would be probably the worst case scenario for this. You are going to get winds coming in from the south just a bit, and then you're going to find that storm surge, I think, is going to be the greatest, probably maybe midway through the bay along the western coast of the bay, and not directly up the center, as we had feared if the storm went right up through the Mobile Bay. So, yeah, I think your storm surge is going to be less. I don't think it's going to be less by much, but a little bit can make a big difference with a storm surge.
Rob, Orlin, staying with us. Let's bring in Gary Tuckman and to check in with him. You guys stay up too. As we know, Gary Tuckman is in Gulf Shores, where the eye of the storm is now reaching land. Gary, what's the situation there?
Well, Catherine, if the world were ever to come to an end, this might be what it feels like. It is completely dark. The winds are fierce. The rains are torrential. They've now been torrential for 10 hours here in Baldwin County, where Gulf Shores is located. We're just on the other side from the barrier island, which is the Gulf Shores beach. We're right across the bridge, the Intercoastal Waterway. There are trees in the streets. This parking lot we're standing in right now is completely flooded. Things are slowing down. It's like it's a rapid. We are told that the fire station in Gulf Shores has lost its roof, and its door is blown in, and it's flooded. We are told by emergency officials that many homes have lost their roofs. We are told that many roads are passable, but emergency officials are not leaving the confines of the Emergency Operations Center right now. It's too dangerous. They've said that everyone should have evacuated. Anyone who hasn't evacuated is on their own right now. We can tell you, having spent much of the day on the beach on the barrier island, that almost everyone seemed to have evacuated. But the fact is, right now, it's a very treacherous time. The winds are sustained at 70 miles per hour, according to our gauge. But we still have another 65 miles per hour to go, because this is where we do expect the brunt of the storm to come here in Gulf Shores, as we reported.
Okay. All right, Gary, stay with us. We're going to bring Orlin back in on this. We're already hearing from Gary Orlin that the roof to the fire station has been ripped off. Several homes have lost their roofs. Orlin, is the worst yet to come, or is this going to be it?
Well, I think he's getting the worst right now, and that's because here is Gulf Shores, and just to the north of that now, you're seeing that's where the brightest colors are, and remember, that's indicative of the strongest thunderstorms. If you look to the south of that, Gary is actually probably going to get in the calm here in about another half hour or so, because that is where the center of the storm is. So you're going to see those winds there decreasing. His rainfall is going to start becoming much lighter, and then he's going to get the back edge of the storm moving through. So that pretty much was the worst that he got right now. There is a little bit of a heavy action still there on the eastern side of the eye wall, but that eye is going to be going pretty much right over the top, excuse me, right over the top of where Gary Tuckman is stationed. So that's going to be interesting to watch over the next, I'd say, half hour, maybe 45 minutes or so. But I think the worst is to the north of Gary, which is good news. So if they got through that, I think they can get through the rest of what's coming as we go through the next hour.
Gary, were you able to hear Orlin?
I heard everything Orlin said. It's very interesting, Orlin, because I will tell you that during Hurricane Francis, when I stood in Fort Pierce, it was much harder for me to talk and much harder for me to stand, and it may have something to do with the protection that we have right now here in Gulf Shores. We are set up right next to a hotel. The hotel's blocking a lot of our winds, so that may have something to do with it. But I'll tell you, if this is the fiercest it gets, I think the people here will be very lucky, because I felt it was much fiercer, even though it was only a 105-mile-an-hour storm during Hurricane Francis in Fort Pierce.
You know, Orlin, you were talking earlier about the difference between those two storms, and one category, especially two, can make quite a difference in the strength of the storm.
That's right. It can make a big difference. And also, one of the things we have to remember is the last time that we got an official wind speed from this was at 11 o'clock when the National Hurricane Center updated their advisory. So that was 3 hours ago. For all we know, the wind speeds could have dropped a little bit. Remember that southwestern edge of the eye wall collapsed. So it wouldn't be surprising to see the winds maybe having dropped a bit. I'm not saying that they did, because we don't know officially, and we won't know for a while yet. But it's possible that as the storm went in and that southwestern part of the eye wall collapsed, that the winds might have slowed down over the past 3 hours or so.
But Gary, exactly where are you? Of course, there's no power there, so it's very difficult. We can barely make out you. So can you give us an idea of what you're standing behind or next to?
Would you believe I'm in Hawaii right now? I mean, you would never know if I was in Hawaii.
No.
But I will tell you, we are We are standing right near the intracoastal bridge, the bridge that goes onto the Barrier Island behind us to our south. So I am facing right now to the north. Behind us is the Barrier Island, Gulf Shores Beach. We are right now in the city of Gulf Shores, population 5,000, this part of Gulf Shores, and the Barrier Island behind us. We were on the Barrier Island for much of the day. It started flooding hours ago. Therefore, we decided to leave for safety reasons, and that's where the firehouse is that has lost its roof. Here, we are told there's a lot of damage, but we cannot literally get our car anywhere out of this parking lot because it's flooded right now to even look. But you couldn't look because 140,000 people here in Baldwin County, this county, almost everyone is without power, we're told by emergency officials. And they have absolutely no idea if there have been any casualties because they can't get out, but they do know there's been lots of damage here.
You know, Gary, it's interesting because, you know, I was with you the night Francis hit the other side of Florida, and indeed, you were not even able to stand up, but you're able to do that now.
Yeah, but I really think it may have a lot to do just with the configuration of the building. As I say that,
of course, as I say that, you're almost knocked over.
The building that is blocked. I will tell you, during Hurricane Francis, we were in a safe area because we were in a very wide open area near a marina, but there were no buildings blocking the wind. So although we weren't concerned about anything falling on top of us, we had nothing blocking the wind, and that's why it may have been harder for us to stand. Here again, we have a lot of protection here with this building, and it may be blocking some of the wind from affecting us. I can tell you that in no way, shape, or form, unequivocally, have we had any 135-mile-an-hour winds here yet.
All right, Gary, we're going to go, stay with us, we're going to go east of you now and check back in with Rob, where things have
Gary.
not let up.
Not at all, Catherine. If Gary's still there, and if you can
yes,
hear
he
me,
is. Go ahead.
I believe, although from a different angle, 25 years ago, almost to the day, Frederick came on shore at Gulf Shores, came in from the southeast, driving up towards the northwest. Before the storm hit, Gary, were you able to check out how high the storm surge came up during Frederick? Because it was a lot worse down there in Gulf Shores than it was up here in the bay.
Right. They told us, the people in Gulf Shores, the old-timers who were here 25 years ago, Rob, they showed us 10 feet up on the walls of the building of the old houses that were there 25 years ago, how high the water got. That's why they told us that they were getting out, because they knew how dangerous it was, the old-timers. But even the people who weren't around 25 years ago knew from Hurricane Francis and Hurricane Charlie this is a serious business, and they don't want to be stuck in a Barrier Island, and that's why it was completely evacuated.
Hey, Orlin, well, how far away is the Gulf Shores in that region from the strongest part of the storm surge?
I'm not sure about the surge just yet. That's because the surge itself is going to be coming in. Part of it comes in ahead of the storm with what we call wave setup, and that means the average sea level starts to go up a couple of days before the storm comes in. Then you get the storm surge that comes in with this bulge of water underneath the eye, and then of course that bulldozer effect as the storm rides on in. So I think the Gulf Shores area is going to see some very strong storm surge. You can see now that the winds there are starting to come from the east and southeast, but as the storm moves through and those winds start to come back from the south, that's when you're going to find most of the water moving across the Barrier Island. So even though I think the winds are going to be the worst now, I don't think the storm surge is going to be as bad until that eye moves across and all of this starts to come in from the south and then move that Gulf of Mexico water right over those Barrier Islands. Also wanted to pass along quickly another tornado warning, this one for Franklin and Wakulla County, Florida. Includes the city of Crawfordville. National Weather Service Doppler radars showing a developing tornado 21 miles south of Crawfordville, 14 miles east of Carabel, moving to the north at 50 miles an hour. So if you're in that area, you need to be concerned. Remember, we talked about those outer rain bands, and here they are, kicking up, again, some more thunderstorms here, right along the Big Bend, and then continuing northward. They're going to move across the state line into southwestern Georgia and the southeastern part of Alabama. So we have tornado warnings currently in effect for that area with that rain band moving through. Tallahassee, probably the closest large city. Looks like it's just a little bit to your west, but you need to be advised in Tallahassee as well that you could see some strong thunderstorms. Hang on just a second. Thank you, Sean. I've got a new tornado watch now that's just been issued from the Storm Prediction Center. Hang on a second, because I'm reading this as I get it. The storm extends from Selma, Alabama to Moultrie, Georgia, 95 miles either side of that line, and we're going to see that in effect probably until about noon tomorrow. Let's see. It goes in effect until 15Z, so that is 11 a.m. Eastern Time. That watch will be expiring. Once again, a new tornado watch. We'll put it on the map here as soon as we get it plotted. That will be expiring at 11 a.m. in the morning. That more than likely is going to be issued a little bit further out here to the north and east. And remember that we do have tornado warnings now for the Florida Panhandle. So just a very busy night all around as far as tornadoes and severe weather is concerned.
A very big storm. I don't think people realize. We've been talking about the category, how strong it is, but it's wide as well. In fact, we had school closings in Georgia already scheduled earlier, well, yesterday now because it's 2 in the morning. But we're going to see this storm as it moves north continue to wreak havoc. Gary, are you still with us?
I am still with you. You can hear me, Catherine.
We can hear you. Were you able to hear what Orelon had to say about the storm surge? And in your opinion, did Gulf Shores learn very much from Frederick? Are they prepared this time for that storm surge?
Well, the people of Gulf Shores know they're very vulnerable. Even in minor storms, there is flooding. And we noticed that today when at 4 o'clock this afternoon, after it had only been raining for an hour, the streets were already flooding. And fences from the beach were already floating to the street. And that was at 4 o'clock this afternoon. Now, that was 10 hours ago. You can only imagine how the barrier island looks right now, when it was already flooding 10 hours ago. This rain hasn't let up at all. That's why it was empty. That's why the police even left several hours ago, thinking that it was unsafe. And it is anybody's guess when the sun comes up what it looks like on the barrier island of Gulf Shores, which is normally, as you know, Catherine, a beautiful place to visit, beautiful place to live, to go on vacation. But I will tell you something, that there's a lot of resort communities, for example, during Hurricane Francis, Jupiter, Florida is a great example where they don't allow any construction on the beach side. They have sand dunes, they don't allow constructions. In this city here, they have homes on stilts that have been there for decades that sit on the beach. It is anybody's guess if they're still up as we speak.
All right, Gary. Stay with us. We'll be back with you in just a few moments. We're going to take a break, though, as we continue our live coverage of Hurricane Ivan, the eye of that storm now reaching Gulf Shores. We'll be back with Anderson Cooper in just a moment. Hurricane Ivan has reached shore in Gulf Shores, Alabama. Let's check in now with Anderson Cooper, who is in Mobile, along with Rob Marciano. And I believe the very large planter that you were ducking behind, Anderson, earlier this evening has now fallen over.
Yeah, that's what we were using for protection just a short while ago. And obviously it's a good thing we stopped doing that.
That's about you said it was about a 600-pound planter, too.
We wouldn't be able to move it, certainly, but the force of the wind obviously could. The wind's obviously increasing. It's been fairly chaotic up here, and it's a small miracle that we've been able to keep a live shot going at this rate. Lots of chaos down on the street where our live truck is, and that's where, Anderson, you've been down there. Describe the scene down there.
Yeah, it was interesting. I was just down there walking around as best I could. It's not as flooded as perhaps some might have anticipated it to be at this point. And our cameraman, Dave Rust, was driving around. We have some of that video. You can see a lot of down branches, a few lights down, a lot of poles kind of shaking around, but really not as extensive damage at this point, at least in the areas that Dave was driving around. Some flooding in some parts of downtown Mobile, Alabama, but I was just down on Water Street. There is, a lot of water running in the gutters, but the streets themselves, you can still drive down. One of the awning, there's a large metal awning on the hotel. That has largely been ripped away. A good chunk of the awning is gone. It's now wrapped around a tree. A number of trees have been uprooted right down on Water Street. But at least that's not as bad as I guess it could have been. I mean, when you look at these winds, They are really whipping up. How fast, Rob, do you think these winds are right about now?
Oh, these are easily hurricane force, easily 75 miles an hour. To knock that planter over, easily 75 miles an hour.
In terms of timeline, what are we looking at here, though? I mean, you know, we were talking about how the eye is going to be a little bit east of us. It's been jogging a little bit east. What are we looking at in the next couple hours?
Well, the northern part of the eye wall right now is making landfall on Gulf shores. It's about a 45-minute drive. Let's call it 25, 30 miles. It's moving north at about 12 miles an hour. So it'll take 2 hours for the northern part of the eye wall to get to this point. At that point, we've got 50 miles of eye to get through. So that'll be another couple of hours of hopefully some calm weather.
But the eye itself is really not going to be in this area. You think it's going to be a little bit east of here?
I think we should get clipped with the western part of the eye. The eastern part of the eye wall is the strongest part, so it bodes well for Mobile, not only for winds, but mostly for the storm surge, hoping it won't be quite as bad on this side of the bay. But what you'll see is our winds are now starting to turn. They're starting to go. They were easterly, northeasterly. They'll go northerly as the eye gets parallel to us. If we're lucky, we'll get a little chunk of that eye, and we'll see some calm weather here, maybe for as much as an hour or so, and maybe you see some clear skies, maybe you see some stars, but the backside of that storm...
And in terms of the eye wall, I mean, you know, people say that's the worst part of the storm. That I don't know if that's true, in fact, but does it look different? I mean, is it notably different? Do you say to yourself, you know, oh, that must be the eye wall because it's suddenly really bad?
Yeah, it's easily the worst part of the storm, at least in the right front quadrant. Now, luckily, we're not going to be on the right front quadrant as that moves in, but this is as far as the winds go, fairly symmetrical storm. So we're getting pretty strong winds, even being on the west side of this thing. But you're feeling it now, Anderson. I mean, we're getting close to the northern fringe of that eye wall itself, and it will get worse here in the next hour before that eye actually crosses us.
In terms of storm surge, though, are you surprised that we haven't seen the kind of flooding at this point that we've been talking about earlier?
Well, typically the storm surge comes as the eye pushes up, so we'll begin to see that now. Have you seen any flooding on the street yet?
I mean, there's water on the sides of the street, but the street itself, I mean, it's not the kind of flooding we anticipate.
Okay, so the flooding we're seeing down there probably is just from the rainfall, right. I'm guessing. What you typically see is you see the wind push that water up ahead of the eye. But most of the storm surge you see on the eastern side of the eye, so I think for that reason, most of the water is going to pile up on the eastern and northeastern side of the bay. The causeway is certainly still going to be affected, but I think and I'm hoping that I'm right here, that the northwestern quadrant, which we'll be in, and where Mobile is, will quickly get a north wind, which will push the water out to sea, as opposed to pulling it in, and that's the scenario we're looking at by having it just past to the east.
Gentlemen, stay with us. I just want to bring in Senator Jeff Sessions of Alabama. He's also in Mobile. He's on the phone with us now. Senator, where are you, and what are you experiencing there?
I'm in West Mobile, and you can definitely feel the intensity of the wind pick up. We've got some large oak trees out back, and they are really just, it's amazing they're still standing. They're just whipping in the wind.
You don't have power, right?
No, I've lost power maybe 2 or 3 hours.
And how close are you to the bay? Are you very close to the downtown area?
Not that close. I'm probably 7 miles west of downtown in the bay.
How prepared do you think Mobile is for this storm?
I think they're well prepared. We have a emergency management center for the city. All the police departments, the fire departments, the homeless shelter groups meet. They have communications all among one another. They've planned this for days, and I met with them today. I think they're doing very well.
Personally, what is your situation there? Are you in the home with your family, or are you there by yourself? I'm
here with my daughter, who lives in Mobile. She's an attorney, and so we're together. She has a home, and we hope it's doing okay. So far, we're doing fine here. What kind of precautions have you taken there to protect your property? Well, we've of course gotten everything in. I have a wooden fence around. I'll be surprised that some of that is not down tomorrow. I've been in my attic. I have some, exhaust fans and things. I'm afraid some of them may rip out. But otherwise, the house seems to be doing well, and it seems we don't have any trees that are close enough to really hit this house. That's one of the big dangers in a city like Mobile with so many trees. Is a lot of homes could be damaged by
Yeah, I think a lot of people
trees.
might be surprised by those skinny pine trees that you find a lot down in that part of the country. They do not fare well in the hurricane.
That's right. The big live oaks with those long limbs, they're just so hard. They're so strong. They unless they're rotting or weakened, they hold up pretty well. But the big pines, some of them 100 years old, tend to go down.
Hey, Senator, stay on the line with us. We have Anderson Cooper, who's in Mobile, not too far from where you are, taking the brunt of the storm as well. He wants to ask you a question. Anderson?
Yeah.
Hey, Senator, I wish I was indoors with you. It sounds a little bit drier.
Well, I'm amazed that you're outside. I've stuck my head out the door a couple of times, and it's rough out there.
Yeah, I know, and I'm sorry to hear you're without electricity. It surprises me that the area we're in still seems to have electricity, which is a good sign for the people who are hunkered down here. I'm wondering, though, Senator, I mean, you're from this area, you know this area well. In terms of the storms that have hit this area, what's the worst you've seen, and how bad was that?
Well, Frederick was the benchmark for many, many years. I think this will going to compete with Frederick, no doubt about it. Frederick we had so many trees down, and there was so much devastation, and blew the leaves off the trees, and it was 25 years ago, I think, in 3 days. I think in the lifetime of most people here, that was the biggest storm.
But there were a lot of lessons learned from Frederick.
They were.
The city of Mobile.
We definitely are coordinating better. There are better building codes that have been established. People didn't mind. People remembered it and left town. I think we're going to the people in the most dangerous areas, I do believe, evacuated. So that should help us on. And the Governor Riley, was very insistent that people in the dangerous areas evacuate.
Anderson, did you have another question?
Yeah, Senator, I'm wondering also, I mean, I haven't spent much time down in downtown Mobile. In terms of flooding, I'm told that, you know, even in a bad storm, there's problems with flooding in this area. Is that the case, and what kind of flooding do you anticipate?
You would have two kinds of flooding, and the kind you mentioned is the surge that could have happened the way the storm comes up the bay. It looks like we may not get that from your conversation that I've heard, and that it may be the storm may be a little further east, and we would avoid the storm surge of tides. But also, Mobile, we get a lot of rain here. We're perhaps the wettest city in America. We have frequently, every year or so, 10 inches or more of rain without a hurricane and in a storm, and sometimes that will flood the streets, but usually not too deep.
Senator, I want to ask you before you leave us about Gulf Shores, though. It does look like Gulf Shores is getting the brunt of the storm, and the last hurricane that ripped through there was a long time ago. Certainly that area of Gulf Shores has grown significantly over the last 10, 15 years, and it's really going to be a test of what kind of construction has gone on there when this passes through. I agree. Gulf Shores is a magnificent area. It's just a beautiful beach. It's being discovered. It really began to take off after Hurricane Frederick. Yeah. And it's just accelerated in the last several years. So it's growing. People come there from all over the country, and they have a much, much better construction. But it will be interesting for me to see how well it's held up in this storm. Yeah, so much new construction there, Senator, and multi-million-dollar homes that are being constructed there. It will be telling tomorrow. Rob, I understand you have something you want to ask Senator Sessions.
Yes, Senator, while we're on the subject of Frederick, I'd like you to clear something up with me if you can remember this far back, because from all the reports that I've read, I'm still a little bit confused. A lot of the locals talk about it as a dry storm and that the surge wasn't that high. From the reports that I've read, there was still at least an 8, if not 12-foot surge at some points. Do you remember how badly Mobile was flooded, or if there was a significant surge at all?
We did not get a tidal surge that flooded downtown Mobile. I think the causeway was covered by a tidal surge. And when they say dry, I believe they mean we did not have this much rain. We're having a good bit more rain than we did in Frederick. Frederick came in very fast, it came on through, and the sun was out pretty quickly. So we had a lot of houses with holes in the roofs from trees, but fortunately, not a lot of rain poured through those holes.
Senator, let's talk a bit about how many resources are going to be available for your state after we've been battered with 3 storms along the coast of Florida, both sides, now Alabama. How prepared is the state of Alabama in getting those resources down there to the coast?
I believe the state is committed all its resources. Governor Riley has personally been to Mobile. He's been at the Emergency Management Center for the state personally. He has the Mr. Brown with FEMA here personally. So I think they're going to do everything that's possible. I think we're going to have a larger supplemental for emergency needs this year because we've had a larger than usual amount of damages.
Certainly.
We've also got, of course, drought in the west that hasn't been fully handled either. So you put all that together, it unfortunately will be a larger than normal supplemental for emergency needs.
Before we let you go, what have you experienced there in your home over the last, say, 45 minutes?
I've seen some water coming around the door, which I would regret to see, and but we're doing fine. The house seems to be doing very fine. We have a small brick patio home, and I'm expecting some of these trees that I see whipping around not to make it.
What about your neighbors? Did they take the advice and head out of town?
I believe they did. I believe most of my neighbors on both sides of me and across the street are gone, although a number are here. But I believe more than half in this neighborhood did evacuate.
That's good news. Rob, are you still there?
Yes, I do. I have a question, Senator, regarding some of the economic impact this storm could have. And I know Frederick pretty much wiped out what was supposed to be a glorious pecan crop, and those trees took several years to recover. What do you anticipate being the industry being most affected by this storm? Would it be farmers or maybe the shipping and exporting industry?
We'll have a lot of our crops harvested, but we're going to lose some that probably have not been harvested. We just north of Mobile is some of the world's finest pine timber land, and mature pine timber is going to suffer from this. This storm is going to knock down a lot of trees that will never be able to be harvested. So a lot of landowners are going to take some hits on that. It's funny how what happens, there's a net loss economically, there's no doubt about that, but the insurance money that pours in after a storm also causes a lot of economic energy.
Yeah, and Senator, certainly you can't forget Gulf Shores and all the money that has been brought in from tourists in that area for your state. If it's going to be a difficult recovery and that affects the spring breakers, could really hurt that area. I
agree. Gulf Shores, I spent a week over there in August, and it's just a wonderful place, and it's going to be interesting to see how much damage was done over there. It's one of the best beaches, and you can lose so much sand in some of the areas that it's going to be difficult to replace that.
And so many businesses depend on the tourist season to make it through the year.
Well, when you lose a week or 2 weeks, as this storm clearly is going to cause, that's a big loss right there.
How do you think Washington is going to address the issues of what we're going to see after the aftermath of all of these storms? And you mentioned the fires out west, but right now, of course, everyone concentrating on the aftermath of these storms.
I think Washington will meet the legitimate needs of this area. I certainly hope so. We'll be requesting that the President propose a strong program, and those of us in Congress that represent the area will be working to make sure that we get a fair shake out of this. But, you know, a lot of people complain about the beachfront people, but their flood insurance is awfully high. It's pretty, I don't think it's as heavily subsidized as most people think. So the people who have their houses there will take some hits. They have a higher deductible than we've ever had, and they'll take some hits there. but so every homeowner is going to lose.
Yes.
But also they have flood insurance that will help them with a larger part of the losses.
All right, Senator Sessions, Jeff Sessions in Alabama, thank you so much for joining us on the phone this evening. Good luck to you. Hopefully we can check back with you earlier in the morning. I don't think you're going to be getting any sleep tonight, do you?
It does not look like it.
All right, thank you very much. Again, that was Senator Jeff Sessions. We're going to check back in with Anderson Cooper and Rob in just a few minutes. We're going to take a break. We'll be back in just a moment. Stay with us.
September 12, 1979. Hurricane Frederick swept across the fragile coastal reaches of Alabama and Mississippi. Witnesses say the Category 3 storm leveled parts of Mobile, making it look like a bomb went off. Frederick caused millions of dollars in damage to southern Alabama alone. With the added destruction in Mississippi and parts of Florida, Frederick proved costly indeed. Damage was more than $2 billion.
Stay with CNN for live coverage of Hurricane Ivan all night long.
As we continue our coverage of Hurricane Ivan, the eye of that nasty storm now over Gulf Shores, Alabama, we've been speaking with Chris Lawrence, who's in Pensacola, Florida. He's actually had to move a couple of times because of the winds there. Chris, what's the situation now?
Catherine, it's getting worse by the minute. This wind is extremely hard right now. And the rain, it just feels like tiny pins every time it hits you. It's coming in at a pretty much horizontal angle. And I can tell you, it's even worse closer to the shore. I just got off the phone with a man named Dennis Church. We spoke with him earlier when we were out at the shelter. He lives about, I'd say, split the distance between the ocean and where that shelter was, which was about a quarter mile. He lives about half the distance closer to the shore. He decided to wait out the storm at his house with his wife and his son. I just got off the phone with him about 5 minutes ago. He says it's very nerve-wracking, but so far he doesn't regret the decision to stay with his home. He does say that he can hear things hitting the house, and as he looked out once about a half an hour ago, he could see his neighbor's roof lift off, not tear away yet, but he imagines in the next half hour or so, he's going to start seeing some pieces of the roof fly off. If it's anything like here, we can certainly imagine that, because although I can't show you just because of the angle of the rain and where it is, we just saw a huge piece, about 6 by 10 piece of aluminum, fly off of the roof of the home where we're staying. If I can bring my producer, Jason Mucci, over, he can show you that these shingles, we've seen these shingles blowing around literally for the past hour, blowing all around. This one hit Jason in the side. So the wind is definitely picking up a great deal here, and the gusts are just incredible.
Chris, stay with us. I'm going to bring in Orelon Sidney. I'm sure you have some questions about what you're experiencing there. Yeah. Can you hear me, Orelon?
Yeah, I can hear you.
We're curious about what exactly Pensacola's getting right now. We know the eye of the storm now in Gulf Shores, Alabama, and then we got to move east over there to far east over to get to Pensacola. Clearly some damage already from the winds there.
Yeah, not surprised too, because if you take a look kind of at what's going on in that area, you're getting the worst of the storms across that region right now. As a matter of fact, I'm taking a look now. I'm going to zoom in a little bit closer here and see if I can get Pensacola actually to show up. There it is on the map now. You can probably see in the middle of your screen. We're going to switch sources here a second and give you Pensacola. You had it. Hang on just a second. Dave, I think you had it right just a second ago. There you go. That's what we were looking for. Pensacola, then, as you can see, is right here. And look down just to the southwest of Pensacola. Here comes some of the very strong storms we're looking at. This particular, I don't want to call it a cell because it's not really a cell, but it's actually the eastern side of the eye wall is headed in the direction of Pensacola. It's going to rotate around probably just off to its west. So Gulf Shores, again, I think is going to maybe get a little bit of a hit from this as it comes through. But that's some of the strongest activity we've seen. Now, my producer Sean did point out to me that just because we're not seeing a lot of action here on the southern part of the eye wall doesn't necessarily mean that there's not a lot of action here. What you can get sometimes as the radar beam comes out, say from Mobile, I believe this one's coming out, it can actually bump into such heavy precipitation on its way down that you can't see what's to the south of it or what's on the other side. Basically, it's called attenuation. So what we may be getting is a little bit of interference, and there may actually be some strong thunderstorms here as well. But you can see, as you talked about with Pensacola, here comes a pretty good little squall that's going to move through probably within the next half hour or so.
Yeah, that look, as you said, that looks like some of the strongest that we've seen around that part of the storm. Chris, are you there? Did we lose Chris? Can you hear us?
We're right here, and I have to tell you that, yes, we're right here. It did catch us a little bit by surprise just because all night we had heard that Mobile was ground zero. So we were going to the edge of it and not get it quite so bad, but I don't know if that slight turn east or the direction that the winds happen to be blowing, but they seem to be catching a
All right, I think we're about to lose Chris as those thunderstorms that we just saw and winds are moving into the Pensacola area. We'll check back with Chris in just a few minutes. Orlin, are you still there?
Yes, I am. And Catherine, I just got some information too. This advisory just coming in from the National Hurricane Center now. The winds have decreased to 130 miles an hour, which, you know, at 130 miles an hour, you're now at Category 3. It doesn't make that much difference as far as the damage at 5 miles an hour, certainly, but the hurricane force winds now extend out 105 miles from the center. So if you go from the center of the storm out 105 miles, you're still getting hurricane force winds in this area. The tropical storm force winds, get this, extend out 290 miles from the center. That is amazing. That means that if you go up here to Montgomery and if you go up towards Birmingham, those areas, believe it or not, are probably getting currently tropical storm force winds. In addition to that, we're seeing some very heavy rains, expecting as much as 10 to 15 inches, isolated higher amounts. And again, here we come, looking at this squall line right here. This is one of the rain bands moving in just to the south of Montgomery. Here comes some more of those very strong thunderstorms. And the whole thing is going to be heading off just to the east of north, we think, over the next few hours. So still, boy, this is going to be a really long night for folks across the southeast.
Yeah, and we're getting so many emails from people all across the south wanting to know about their area. Here's one from Bessemer, Alabama, worried about work in Birmingham. I want to get to that in just a little bit, but right now we're going to concentrate on the eye of that storm and check in with Gary Tuckman quickly again in Gulf Shores where that storm is hitting full on. Gary?
Well, Catherine, is it my imagination, or are the winds decreasing a little bit because the eye is approaching? We can tell you it's still treacherous out here, but the winds are not as intense as they were just 10 minutes ago. I want to tell you something incredible that we just heard from the Baldwin County emergency officials here. They are at the Emergency Operations Center, which is about 15 miles inland from where we're standing right now. They are telling us that they are not leaving the Emergency Operations Center, police, fire officials, for anything like a life or death emergency or an extraordinary emergency, and we are told right now they're dealing with an extraordinary one. A woman has gone into labor. She went with her husband to the hospital. They couldn't get there because of the intense winds, the rain, and trees blocking the road. They went back home. People from the Emergency Operations Center are now taking a military vehicle to her home, and their plan is to bring her back to the Emergency Operations Center and deliver her baby. They hope they're able to do it in time.
Oh, well,
I can tell you right now they're dealing with intense... Can you still hear me, Catherine?
Yes, I can, Gary. Go ahead.
Okay. We can tell you they are dealing with intense flooding here. That's a big problem, particularly on the barrier island behind us. They're dealing with trees down all over the county, and they are dealing with many roofs that have been destroyed on homes and a roof that's been destroyed on the fire station. But I can tell you there's no question about it. There's been a decrease in the winds, substantial decrease from the hurricane force winds. We are told that they had winds, 6 o'clock at the Emergency Operations Center, of 110 miles per hour, and that's inland from where we are. We have very good protection from a building that is in front of me, that is to my side, and that's why we've been able to stand and deliver these live reports to you during these Category 4 winds.
Well, no big surprise. Orelon said she thought you might be getting a brief respite from the storm as that eye moved in, and from what Orelon can see from the Weather Center up there. Orelon, are you there?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, if you take a look at the radar source, we're on GR 118. You can see Gulf Shores there right in the center, and here is the center of the storm. Gary Tuckman is right about there, and that is the calming that he is seeing right now, and he's probably going to see that for I'd say another half hour or so, and then you're going to start to see the winds pick up from the opposite direction. There is some good news because there continues to be some I don't know if it's necessarily clear, but there continues to be down to the southwest here still an area where we've got a lot lower reflectivities. Now again, there could be some attenuation going on here, or there could indeed be an area where there's just not a lot of thunderstorm activity. So that's good news, and I think Gary is probably going to miss this area of thunderstorms. I think that big squall there on the eastern eye wall is headed more towards Pensacola than Gulf Shores. So a little bit later on, Gary's going to find out that things are going to get a little bumpy again, but I think the worst may be over. We'll have to see once the eye crosses and we see whether or not we're getting fooled by the attenuation down here, whether there is actually more thunderstorms to come down here to the south. I apologize for my wonderful drawing there, but you get the idea.
We get the picture, that's right.
You get the idea.
Well, Gary, I know this would be great news for the woman you spoke of who has gone into labor in the middle of this storm. Emergency personnel have come to her aid. They're trying to take her back to the center. Hopefully the eye of the storm will make that possible for them.
Well, this could be exquisite timing for that woman, and timing that is so good that if everything works out well, and we sure hope it does, if she has a boy, perhaps you should name her boy Ivan.
Oh,
but
no.
I can tell you right now that we could, well, we could almost take out the baseball gloves right now and throw the ball around, because it is, seriously, 15 minutes ago, we had 100-mile-an-hour gusts, and right now, it is not raining very hard, and the winds are relatively calm. And it is one of the most remarkable things in Mother Nature, the eye of a hurricane. Like Orelon, I've flown in the Hurricane Hunter planes before, and you fly through the eye, and it just looks like this amazing volcano, this funnel where you can see up and you see blue sky when it's during the day. And when you're on the ground, it's the same thing. It's just like the most amazing thing, how you can go from these most amazing conditions and have it become relatively calm.
Gary, we're going to take a break and come back with you in just a few minutes in Gulf Shores, Alabama. Stay with us, everyone, as our live coverage of Hurricane Ivan continues.